Welcome to the Myth and Magic Authors Podcast, folklore and fantasy topics aimed at creative storytellers. To write stories and challenge your brain with exciting ideas, delve into these presentations and reflections. See how fantasy realms are based on actual world history, legend, and lore. Study fairy tales, nature fables, and supernaturalism to engage in a jumble of concepts that will trigger your fancy and get you writing imaginatively. Now, here's your host, Neil Mack.
Hello, fantasy fiction fans, and welcome to another edition of Myth and Magic, a podcast for fantasy authors and creatives. So what's the difference between an audiobook, a podcast, and an audio drama? Today I chat with Bibi, who's able to make the differences easy to understand. English writer Bibi Berki is one half of a creative association called Tempest Productions, which she co-founded with actor Mark Lingwood to make original audio dramas and podcasts. After university, she trained as a news reporter and she worked for regional and national newspapers and as a producer for the BBC. And Bibi self-publishes fiction, both under her own name and also under the name H.A. Ferdinand. Tempest Productions' vision is to tell great stories and produce high-quality content in a variety of genres and formats, and all their narrative is original. The production company is driven by a collaborative approach to creating podcast dramas and documentaries and short films and show reels. A central part of their work is to develop original ideas into unique scripts for television, for film and for audio production. And in this interview, Bibi demystifies audio-based storytelling, and she explains what you, as a fantasy author, can do to prepare your own fiction for audio. She gives valuable tips and advice for those who are thinking of writing for audio, and she also offers an exciting opportunity. So you need to listen to this interview to find out more about that. Bibi's upcoming novel, The Watch, is to be released in September via Salt Publishing and is already longlisted for the Lucy Cavendish 2020 Fiction Award. So, without further ado, let's pop over to South London and speak with author and producer and journalist Bibi Berki.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
How you doing? All right, Bibi? Is it okay to say Bibi? Is that right?
That's absolutely spot on. Perfect.
So you're speaking from London, are you?
From South East London, yes, a very green corner of London called the London Borough of Lewisham.
Oh, I know,
and we're in
Lewisham.
Ladywell.
Oh, right.
Do you?
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in Staines, which is out in the west of London. I'm about 5 or 6 miles away from Windsor Castle. I live on the river, on an island on the river.
I know Windsor quite well. My husband's from that part of the world.
Is he?
But he grew up all over the place, all over the world. But his family's from Datchet and Windsor and that part of the world.
Yeah. So Datchet is between us and Windsor's, yeah. It's lovely, excited talking to you. So we're going to talk about audio dramas and audio books and what makes a good audio book, I think. Before we start, though, I think it might be a good idea to clear up some terminology and some semantics for the listeners.
Yeah.
So what is an audio drama? I just wanted you to explain the difference between that and an audio book and a podcast, just so no, please.
Okay. Well, I'd start that by saying that sort of once upon a time, certainly in this country, I can't speak for the rest of the world, if you wanted to listen to drama as opposed to watch it, there was really only one place to go, and that would have been Radio 4. Yeah. And they would have had various versions of radio fiction, either as short stories that were read by a single narrator or dramas with their sort of in-house group of actors or famous actors. But over the last couple of years, that's changed dramatically. And part of the audio and podcast revolution has seen more and more people producing drama or spoken fiction on all sorts of platforms, all sorts of subjects, and in very high quality, really. So that's, it is what you would once have thought was radio drama is now more widely available, and it can be any length, any style, any genre. I mean, it really is a maker's market.
Yeah, I used to, well, I still do love Radio 4, but once upon a time, that was the only thing we had, wasn't it? Yeah.
It really was. And I think even when we started Tempest, we thought that was our only potential destination for original drama. But actually, we've become a producer ourselves and a platform ourselves, and other writers come to us and we produce their work. And as long as it's original, sit up and listen drama or fiction, we want to make it, really. And people can either come to us but there are other producers as well. So, I mean, it is. And recently I was privileged enough to be a judge on the International Audio Drama Festival. And my sort of creative partner and I listened to a number of contributions from around the world. And it is extraordinary how broad this description of audio drama and fiction can be. I mean, the traditional whodunits, which are very popular, and there's a good reason why they are, and can be done very well, and all the way to far more esoteric, more genre-led stuff that, like supernatural or even dreamlike. I mean, it is an amazing opportunity for creative people to make their own stories come to life, often with minimal background in production. It just so happens that when we set up Tempest, I mean, I came from the writing background and my working partner came from the acting and directing background. So we felt very comfortable in that world, but we're still finding, it's wonderland, really, that anything goes. And we've got a lot of good work ahead of us, I think.
Yeah. So do you think that audiobooks and obviously Audible and people like that have got people to understand how to consume the written word but as a play or...
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very absolutely central point of the listening revolution is how we consume. Certainly when my kids were little, I used to get so frustrated that they wouldn't read with me. They didn't want to read. And I've come to, I've been taught by them that there are so many ways to consume fiction. In their cases, it could be anything from gaming to fan fiction to, to anime or you name it. But I think we've come to a stage, that you reach stages in your life where you don't really have the patience, you're not in the right headspace to read. And that's all right, because you can listen, and you can listen when you're doing anything, cooking, running, working, traveling. And that's possibly why in a more, let's say, neurotic age, listening has become so much more popular. It has that relaxing element to it, but it also means that you can do it while you're doing other things. And I know, I mean, I have lots of friends that do all sorts of things and listen to our stuff when they're, I don't know, sewing, gardening, cooking, you name it. Yeah. But with the audio book over the last year or so, it's really been a phenomenon, I think. And you can see why. It is a perfect switch off, really, isn't it? I mean, you go to bed, lie down and listen, and you're in another world. And we haven't done audio books as such yet, although we are hoping to move into that area. And of course, Audible is the first name that comes up, but there's certainly other people moving into that.
Yeah. So you've been talking then about your production company. So that's Tempest Productions, is it? Would you like to name check your partner in that, the actor?
Yes, I would very much. We started it together, and we did it because we discovered that we both just loved telling stories, and as creatively as imaginatively as possible. His name is Mark Lingwood, and he's a brilliant actor. He's been on TV and stage and film, and he's certainly quite a force of nature and someone to work that you can work so well with. And he's so much improved my work and output as a writer in many, many ways. I hope he's going to listen to this. To tell him how much I hugely appreciate it, because to be able to work with someone, when you're a writer, it's a much more solitary thing, but to work with someone, particularly an actor who instantly can visualize or can hear things, it just transforms how you produce your work. And you are prepared to take on far more ideas and nuanced work that you hadn't before. So between us, we, I think, make a good team.
Sounds good. What sets Tempest Productions apart from other production companies then? What's your what are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, what sets us apart? I mean, we are unusual, I think, in the sense that we call ourselves podcasters because that's the world we inhabit.
Yeah.
Our stuff is available wherever you would get podcasts. But I suppose we are really half production company as well, in the sense that we will work with other people. We make series that we want to put out there as packages, and we're very keen to collaborate with others as well. What do we hope to achieve? Well, in a way, without sounding pompous about it, I think we kind of have achieved it, which is to make original content.
Yeah.
I suppose the ultimate aim would be that, whenever someone wants to listen to something, they think Tempest.
Right.
They think, I want a little bit of quality listening, something unusual, and just to fit I know what I'm going to go to Tempest. So I suppose that's the ultimate achievement.
Yeah. So I saw that you're about to publish a new novel, which is The Watch, in autumn. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I wanted to really talk about your series of books written under the pen name H.A. Ferdinand.
Yes,
There's 4 comedies, and I think the first one's called Mrs. Tempest's Marriage Bureau. And I guess this is the kind of book that sparked the Tempest production, your whole raison d'etre. And I think it's a good example of how an independent writer can move from the written word into audio. So tell us a bit about Mrs. Tempest's Marriage Bureau and what makes it an ideal book to move into audio.
Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely spot on with that. It was a turning point for me personally, because I wrote, I just had this story in me. It was a comedy about sort of marriage planning that doesn't work, and in a very old-fashioned setting. And so I just wrote it, and I never wrote it for traditional publication or anything. So I just thought I'd test the waters. We're going back a while now. I'll test the water and I'll write it as a self-published novel. And it got interesting. It did very well, and there was a lot of interest in it. And I remember saying to Mark at the time, this was long before he was a friend, our kids were friends, that I want to write more and do more stuff like this. And he said, look, it's going to make it's very much, it's an audio piece. He could hear it. This is what I'm saying about actors coming from another dimension slightly. And he said he could hear it, and he got together a group of actors, and I had slightly rewrote it for almost like an audio book, and they got together and read it, and my God, it was it was a transformative moment, because I never thought that I could work in any other medium other than novels. And it's funny, I've just written an article for Writing Magazine on this very subject, what I would have told my younger self, which was, it was novels, nothing else.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a whole world, particularly now, of other ways where you can express yourself, that people can read you or hear you or see your work.
Yeah.
And there's a great appetite for fiction out there, short films. The Netflixes of this world are always looking for story ideas, and to get your stories out there is just the first discipline, really. Yeah. And if it doesn't work necessarily, or at some point as a novel, there are so many other ways of doing it. And in fact, I've always written in quite a filmic way, I think, visually and in an audio way as well. So from then we thought, well, look, why don't we see if we can take this further? And a couple of my short stories were recorded by some wonderful actors that we still work with to this day, and it just took off, and that became Tempest Productions. And then when we did to test the waters, we did a comedy series which is still very dear to my heart, called Tapped, and it's literally 2 voices, odd phone calls that are overheard, and it was a joy to make, and they're still there and available to listen to, and that really sort of got us going. And then we moved on to a series called Fault Lines, which is more sort of scary, supernatural, paranormal series, and then people have approached us, and we've made things, and we're about to work with an award-winning, very highly regarded actor who's going to make a series with us based on one of his books. So I think if you put yourself out there, people will find you, and that's what's happened to us.
So that's Fault Lines you were talking about, which is sort of like haunting thing. What's the ideal length of something like that? If somebody was going to come to you with an idea or suggestion, what would you want the kind of length of an audio drama to be?
Yeah, Well, I think the distinction there is audio drama, isn't it? And I think a drama usually is a bit longer. And in fact, we've worked with one writer where we did a 2-part drama, and they would have been about 30 minutes each.
Right.
My personal view is 30 is probably the cutoff for a listener. I think if it's a discursive non-fiction piece, then it could probably run over. But for drama, I think you need to keep it tight and need your audience to be hanging on every word. So I would say an ideal is about 25 minutes. But then, I'm sure there are wonderful things where you hang on the word and they're much longer. And of course, we've done much shorter as well.
It's a sensible way to explain it. Thank you.
Yeah, keep your audience.
So assuming that listeners do already know something about dramatic structure, you didn't tell me just then whether or not you've written a screenplay or a stage play before, but what do you think are the most important differences between writing for audio and then writing for stage or screen?
There's the obvious ones, I suppose, but which is there has to be a degree of explanation, I suppose. If you can't see what's going on, you need to understand, you need to grasp it. And we work with short story writers at the moment, and I do often go back to them and say, we just need a tiny bit more explanation here. Nothing too obvious, but just so it can the listener can anchor onto what's happening. But I suppose audio drama stroke fiction is very similar to the written word in the sense that you are painting a picture for someone. It's not there in front of you, so you have to paint it for them. And that doesn't necessarily mean a technique, but there is a sort of vivid aspect to writing for audio, I think. That it's difficult to put your finger on, really. But we've had things adapted. We had a couple of things sent to us that were adapted from the stage, and they just, it depends on the piece, really. It might need minimal adaptation, might need none at all. But short stories definitely transpose very easily into the audio form, because, like I say, they are often they build these pictures in your head already. And they're a wonderful size. And that's why our most recent series really is, if you deconstruct it, it is short stories that are read, by professional actors. But there is so much more than that. I mean, we choose them very carefully, and they have to work as audio pieces. And we do sort of, Mark's responsible for the sounds and the editing side, and so it is very important to set an atmosphere. That's the beauty, I suppose, of podcasting and audio, is that you can bring so much more to it and make it such a sensory experience. But the atmosphere is brought from the words primarily, really. And Unbound is, there's every genre going there. That was the aim of it, really, in lockdown, that people could have stories that they could just escape to. But if they, were in the mood for a full-on old-fashioned romance or for something scary or an adventure, they should be able to find it in this sort of audio bookshelf. We've got a wonderful story there from a prize-winning writer which is a sort of Himalayan adventure, which is real nail-biting stuff. We've got one that's, we've got romances. We've got a First World War set horror that we've just done. We've got more sort of Talking Heads type, if you remember that from TV, sort of monologues. So there's everything there for whatever mood. In fact, you'll be interested to hear, I think we've got a fantasy one, sort of mythical fantasy one on our coming up.
Oh, good.
But we're always interested in that genre, definitely.
Right. So would my listeners be able to perhaps submit something to you, or is it something that you could get involved in? Most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's got something that they want to put past us, we'd very happily see it. Like I said, this is a multi-genre series, Unbound. And what is more unbound than the world of fantasy? So we'd be very grateful for stuff. So we're talking roughly short stories, nice compact short story, tops 3,000 words, which is, the best way to go about it. If you've written something that you think will work for audio, read it aloud.
Exactly.
Almost imagine you've got the mic in front of you and you're doing it, and see if it works. And that the listener doesn't have to work too hard to follow. So a lot of things, for example, I mean, there are wonderful stories that work very well in fiction that jump backwards and forwards with nothing but an asterisk between the section. But it's a little bit harder to do. Not impossible, but it's a little bit harder to do that if someone's listening. So yes, please find us on, if I'm allowed to plug us,
Please
go to www.tempestproductions.net. Net is very important, N-E-T. And then there's the contact details out, or go to our podcast page and have a look at the kind of things we've done. I mean, we have done non-fiction as well, but obviously for fantasy writers and for that genre, then I think Unbound is probably the right destination.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I keep banging on the whole time to my listeners that they must read out their work. It's absolutely crucial, because I think not only you can get a better sense of what it's going to be like as an audio book, but it's just a much easier way to edit, because every single sentence is completely different when you read it out because obviously you're reading in gaps, aren't you?
Yeah. I agree. And I think it's not only an easy way to edit, it's an easy way to write sometimes. I mean, there are times when I'm sort of lost and I've been disturbed and I can't work. And I know if I start a conversation with myself, I'm talking out loud, it almost takes me back in to the flow, really. So, I mean, that if you're not too shy, but the out loud reading is, and also, I mean, one of the things that's made such a difference to me as a writer has been sharing my work, talking to other people about it, and constantly reworking stuff. And I think I've just had to change my attitude, which was the wrong attitude, which was to work in this very sort of blinkered, I know I'm right, this is right. And because it's all sorts of hair-raising things come sort of revealed if you're talking to other people. And it's a treasure trove of ideas as well.
Yeah, I agree. So you've written some other novels. You've written a book called Little Siskin. Could you tell us about that?
Yes. Well, Little Siskin was a novel I wrote, a few years ago, and it was set around the time of the Spanish flu. Yeah. Obviously a very newsy subject right now, but I was just fascinated by the fact that as a setting, it hadn't been used, to my knowledge, before, as this is the principal character, if you like, of a novel. And also the fact that we seem to forget illness, don't we? I mean, I've had COVID. It's horrible, made such an impression to this day on my daily life, but nobody really talks about it because illness is such a messy, sort of uncomfortable thing to talk about. So it gets forgotten. We move on. We want to forget. We move on. But of course, an awful lot of people lost their lives, and families were ripped apart and communities destroyed because of a virus. And as years go on, you pick the pieces up and you move on. And I sort of just wanted to know what it would be like. So we're talking about sort of 1914, but for end of the First World War. Yeah. And it's a sort of family saga based around that time. And there's a missing mother involved. I don't want to give away any more of that, really.
Sounds interesting. It's somebody who's been coping with, like I'm the same as you. I had COVID. I've got long COVID now. So people who are coping with these problems. It's interesting to think that you wrote that. So you wrote that 5 years before COVID? Oh,
long before. Yeah. But it must have been about 6-7 years before. Yeah. And I thought. Oh yeah, because I thought when the pandemic, the Spanish flu sort of centenary had appeared, I'd do something with it. But in fact, I was so busy doing other stuff. And then, then another pandemic suddenly hits, and these are once in a lifetime situations. Yeah. And but it made me feel, and I felt it was very interesting, the parallels between this one and that one, and also how utterly central to people's lives it was for that moment, even after this appalling war. But how quickly people move on, and there's no monuments to these huge numbers that died, because the dying is from an illness is such a sort of private, unpleasant thing. It's not a glorious battle scene death or anything. Yeah. So it gets moved on, and long-term illness it gets moved on from. And I do understand that. It's not necessarily fascinating material, and I didn't. It was a sort of. It was the catalyst for the story. I don't, talk about illness all the time, but I just wanted to see just to do that, focus on a moment when it would have been quite scary, as it was for us, I think.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Thank you for that. How have things changed for you in sort of like the greater world of reading and writing since you published your first? When did you publish your first book?
Well, I wish I could tell you, and I can't. I mean, I've been writing for an awful long time, and I got my first agent when I was only 29 or 30 or something, and I've pretty much, it's been a roller coaster ever since. But I mean, like you or anyone will say, life intrudes, and you have families and work, and it's so, and you continue writing throughout that period. So yeah, I've never stopped really.
Yeah.
But
so you've seen the advent of indie publishing, and you've seen the advent of obviously the ebooks and the audio books.
Yes.
How else do you think things have changed for the writer in that time?
Well, I think it is primarily it's a case of opportunity, and I think this is exactly what you're saying there. That I think it was a very sort of monolithic thing. Writing is this, you wrote a screenplay or you wrote a novel, and you made your name that way. And one of the reasons why I write under H.A. Ferdinand as well is because I never wanted to be known for something. I don't really want to be known actually, but I'm going about it the right way. If I wanted to write a comedy, if I was at that point in my life, I wanted to be able to do it, and that's the beauty, I think, of this revolution of digital, of self-publishing, of hybrid publishing, of working with other platforms and other forms, and I would urge people to embrace it wholeheartedly, because it's made such a difference to me. And I think my confidence as a writer, and being able to even call myself as a writer, has come because of this multiplicity of ways of writing, really. And and not only that, but if you're doing this as a career choice, I think to be seen, to have blog posts, to be seen on social media is now almost unquestioned. That's everyone's fighting for a slice, aren't they? And that's going to be, you're going to have to be very conversant with that world, I think.
Yeah. Let's move on to The Watch. It's going to be coming out in the autumn, am I right?
Yeah.
So would you like to give us your elevator pitch for that then? Let's go.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the Watch isn't really all plot, so I don't want to give too much away, but it is. It's a shortish book, thank God, and it's it was sparked by this notion. I think I was listening to something on the radio about quite a senior clinical psychologist, who was saying that, in his day, when students were depressed or even suicidal, then you would put another student in with them. And that was it. That was the extent of the sort of the help they got. And it made me think, what would that be like, that these two young people put together? And from that came this story about these two very ill-matched girls, one extremely hot night in summer when one is asked to sit with another girl who is suicidal. And the conversation that takes place there fundamentally transforms the rest of their lives. And I'm going to stop there only because that's... I might give away the rest of the plot. Intertwined with that is this notion of, the girls want to discuss what it is to do good, to go out into society and do good. And this notion that we are very public good, which is, of course, around us everywhere now. You just have to go on Twitter and people are just sending inane stuff like "be nice" or something. I'm always telling my kids this, it drives me crazy, seeing t-shirts with "be nice" on it. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, so there's a lot of public show of morality, which is quite vacant, really. So that was another aspect of this story. Sorry, I can't say much more, but it is coming out in September. I'm absolutely thrilled and terrified about it. A wonderful publisher called Salt, who are the leaders in sort of independent publishing, and I'm very, very lucky, and like I say, slightly scared.
Well, good luck with that. If people wanted to pre-order that, is that possible now or not?
It is possible, yeah, it absolutely is. I think I've seen it pre-order, I think on W.H. Smith, and also go directly to Salt Publishing.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, the best way to do it.
What if people want to follow you personally as an author as opposed to Tempest Productions? Is that possible?
Yeah, we're on most social media, Twitter, Tempest Product One, I think. We're on Facebook now. I'm Tempest Productions. Or you'll find it on our website, which I'll just repeat, which is tempestproductions.net.
Yeah.
The net is important to distinguish us from other Tempests. And then you can follow us via that. And please do follow us. And we're also on, we're on all the major podcasting platforms, Spotify.
Yeah.
If you listen to Spotify, just follow us on there and then you'll never miss anything. And like I say, we've got a lot of good things coming. Dramas, stories, and more. We do documentaries as well. My day job is I'm a journalist, and I did a series for Tempest, which was a long-held passion of mine, which is film writing, and was very lucky that got picked up by the BFI, and that's part of a Blu-ray now. So yeah, I would stress we are open to anything. If it's a great story, Tempest will do it. And doesn't matter what genre, doesn't matter who it's by, what length, or anything, but send us your ideas, please.
There you are. If it's a good story, Tempest will do it. I love it.
Yeah.
When you were writing the watch, did you have in mind that could easily translate to audio?
As far as Mark was concerned, it was yes. Yeah. And he's got this brilliant brain that was always a step ahead, and can hear something and that could work and this could work. And like I say, I think that's part of that sort of energy of an actor. And often I'm way behind and I'm just sort of beavering away at a story and trying to make it readable. And then he'll say, look, I can really see this going this way. And then, certainly with other things, certainly with the watch, even I have, rung him up desperate and said, I don't know what's happening. And then we'll discuss it. So, yes, I think as we move further towards long form audio, which will be audio books, very, very possibly. And just to repeat, we are in an amazing time when pretty much anyone can put anything up anywhere, and the quality is what makes it rise. So yes, we certainly how can I say this? If people wanted to use us as a business, and record a book with us, we could certainly employ an actor to do that. So, we are open to doing more audiobooks if writers are interested in that as a business prospect. So, yeah, who knows what will happen to the watch? Who knows? We've got a lovely series that actually might be of interest to fantasy and myth readers. Is called London Epitaphs, and I live just over there is a cemetery. I live very near a beautiful old London cemetery. And it's a series that is based on forgotten famous people or notorious people or simply forgotten people of interest in that cemetery. We work with a historian and we're about to do another series of that as well. But that is popular everywhere. In the States, everywhere. The stories are universal and fascinating. They really are. That's called London Epitaphs. And that's also available if you go to tempestproductions.net. And if you go to the podcast page and keep scrolling down, you'll see everything we've done, and keep going. You'll find stuff. Also, you'll find us on Spotify easily. And like I say, most other places.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Well, good luck with your release of your book in the autumn.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to be on your wonderful podcast, actually. That's and I want to say thank you very much, and thank you for people who are listening. And I just think, that writing, I know it sounds bland, but the sharing of stuff is such a revolution now, isn't it? And I think these links and these networks and talking to people and getting to know them is so what you're doing is brilliant, because certainly opening my eyes to a whole other tranche of writing, and I hope will alert people to the fact that it really is an age where people are looking for stories. They really are, and to bring those two sides together is the knack, is what you really want to do. So any sort of communication is brilliant. So aim high, get those stories out there, even if it means, what you're just blogging them all the time. Do it, because you'll still get readers.
You're saying all the right words. I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your time today, Bibi. Keep in touch and keep writing.
definitely.
Keep those little
Definitely.
words coming in.
Thank you. I will definitely, and I'll keep listening to you guys. And can I just say the last one you did with the story, just quickly, I know we need to go, but that you were talking to a writer who was who had the idea of extending the Snow White story.
Yes.
And it had been done, either side of her life had been done, but no one had done what it must be like to be in Snow White's sort of coma. I thought, what a brilliant story idea. It's one of those moments of inspiration. You think, what a ghostly world. I must get hold of that book. But that's it. I think writers they're in a world of ideas, and how they do it is up to them. But the ideas are infinitely interesting, really. So, I look forward to seeing more. I'm listening more. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. You keep safe. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.